means the Viper is just that much more powerful in a 1 versus 1. But I do like what Fnatic get against the Viper here. So they grab the Visage, but it's a Wind Ranger who is pretty important to me. I feel like Wind Ranger is quite strong versus Viper. The focus fire is a really good way to output a lot of single target physical damage against the Viper, and of course the Wind Run dodging a large share of damage as well. I feel like the Wind Ranger is one of the few heroes that can actually maybe win that 1 versus 1 against Viper, though I still think it's one-sided to the Viper. I still think it's like more like a 60-40.
Yeah, it might even be more than that. I remember like I played in some like in-house league recently. Maybe it was FPL, and I had to play that matchup. It was like Wind Ranger versus Viper. You would think that the Wind Run helps a lot, but if you really think about it, like Wind Ranger has 1 or 2 armor starting in. Her base damage actually isn't that fantastic.
Right.
And every time you load a power shot, the Viper wants to get hit by it. Because it's just not efficient for you to use mana on Wind Run because it costs so much. Like all of your spells cost roughly 100 mana. You have like a 350 mana pool. Like you want to be using those on power shots, right?
Yeah.
It's really rare that in the mid matchup that you're going to get an opportunity to shackle to set up for kill. I am curious to see how they run this Wind Ranger pick though. I'm pretty sure they're going to put the quad mid and aggro with like Visage, Wind Ranger plus like, I don't know. I would do something like Earthshaker, but something more even interesting than that is the fact that Pudge was banned as the last ban. Maybe
yeah.
It's like one of two things, right? Like Secret either uses it as like a last pick to throw things off for like an offlane Pudge or something like that, or Mushi was just like, I don't really care what I ban, because he's known to do that.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think about the Crystal Maiden? Because this is the support that has been out of the meta for a while, and then this recent patch, an upgrade to her ultimate, an upgrade to Frostbite, has made her a lot more viable. And then actually the last buff as well was Crystal Nova slowing down attack speed, which I think I've talked to you about this before. You said you were talking to one of the pro players, and like this attack speed slow is quite significant because it means in those sort of like 1 versus 1 where you're zoning out the offlaner or something like that just means you win the right click battle as well, right?
Yeah, I think AUI pointed that out too when we did our patch analysis video. He said the attack speed slow is pretty significant, but I think it goes beyond that. I think the Crystal Maiden early game just ruins the Queen of Pain. Like it's one of the better heroes to gank with because if Frostbite goes off, then it's almost a guaranteed kill.
Yep.
So what I would like to see out of Secret's lineup is they just play aggressively. Like the Crystal Maiden, I think, can even start in the jungle, grab a smoke, grab boots, and then just at level 2 or 3 when you've got pretty much a level of everything, you just go around the map killing. And I think that the Crystal Maiden pick is also maybe in response to Fnatic potentially aggressive tri-laning. Because that's what I would do if I was Fnatic here, I think. I think I would pick like Visage, Wind Ranger plus Earthshaker. That was the old LGD combo that they picked almost every single game. That was so successful for them.
Darkseer being the last pickup for Team Secret. Pretty good combination with the Gyrocopter being able to vacuum together for the call down, and then you actually have the Naga Siren Sleep to set it all up beforehand. So you get a good sleep, a couple of heroes are grouped up, you lay down the wall preemptively. You also have the Crystal Nova that's going to be on top of all that, so or rather the Freezing Field as well. So I like the combination, and it does give them an amazing amount of sustain because is also that can afford to go for the mech, and that would then leave our Viper to go for maybe a little bit more stats focused build and early agonims, and I feel just as a whole that this is so much team fight, and Fnatic are known to be a rather aggressive team and want to be able to fight you, and the lineup that they picked up is more damage focused. It feels like Team Secret are just going to be able to live through that damage. They have enough sustain that they're just going to outlast you, and then their damage over time starts kicking in, whether it's the Ion Shell, the Viper of course, very damage over time oriented, even certain people like the Gyrocopter early on with his flat cannon. So this is, I like what Team Secret have done with their lineup. It feels like Fnatic are a lot more focused on performance in the early game.
I actually really like that Witch Doctor pick, because if you look at Secret's lineup, they actually don't have a whole lot of disables to stop it. And I feel like if there's like one support ultimate that really ruins your life, it's the Witch Doctor ultimate. That can turn it by itself.
All right, starting things off here, Team Secret. We've got, well, let's just cover who's playing what first before we actually have a stab at what the lanes are. We got Puppey, who's going to be playing the Crystal Maiden, Zai on the Darkseer, S4 going to be playing the Viper, Kuro on the Naga Siren, and that leaves Arteezy on the Gyrocopter.
I think that's pretty standard. I think that's what we discussed earlier, right? Because you can't really put the Gyrocopter mid, but he's just going to go for the Ring of Aquila, sustain the lane, and I think the better thing for Secret to do here is just run the Crystal Maiden around.
So in which case, then you just lead the Viper there, you move the Crystal Maiden around. What do Fnatic need to do to actually put pressure on Team Secret? Because I kind of feel like they have to set the tempo in the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's not even the lineup thing. I actually really like Fnatic's lineup, but I feel it's more just the fact that if you're Fnatic, you know you're the underdog coming into this game.
Yeah.
So I feel like against a team like Secret, especially, the way to beat them is to set your own pace early and wait for them to get frustrated and overextend. Because I feel like EG is a little bit more disciplined in nature in that regard. I feel like EG is the team that will always have the comeback advantage, but I feel like Secret is the team that really relies on having just like a dominant lead.
All right, and as we get things going here, let's talk about Fnatic. We got Mushi playing the Wind Ranger mid up against S4's Viper. We'll see how that matchup goes. The top lane, we do have a defensive tri-lane. Ketchik Imba is playing the Visage. Johnny on the Witch Doctor, KYXY playing that Queen of Pain. And that just leaves Ohio as our off-lane Tusk, who is currently being zoned out quite heavily by Kuro. I did like this early counter ward that I placed out. This blocks out the camp and actually happened to spot out a early laning ward that Secret put out. So that actually is quite fortuitous for him, but is he actually going to be able to come forward in lane enough? Because it is a bit dangerous. Like, Kuro can win the 1-versus-1 matchup, and then if he sticks around a bit too long and Arteezy gets in range, he's going to get rocket barraged down. Yeah,
this is the old alliance strat too. You just get a support Naga and then give her a poor man shield. And because of her natural move speed, like if you just click on her hero, her stats are unbelievable early game as a support. She's got 6 armor, 320 move speed. Then you've got the block from the poor man shield, so even if you get tanked by the creep wave, it doesn't matter.
And he's got Arcane Aura as well.
Yeah.
So he's able to spam out Riptides more often. Top lane looks like Zai's going to be taking some damage. Not level 2 just yet. So the double slows are actually doing a good amount of work. Zai, I think, will survive. He's actually dropping very low here, and a couple more right clicks and they would have got him. But he is going to be forced into the potion. He still had Shadow Strike on him, so that's a big loss for Zai, which means he will be forced back to base. Meanwhile, in the middle lane, we've got an even CS lead here for Mushi. He's just 1 deny up over S4. Of course, feeling a lot of pressure from Johnny. This is sort of a signature thing for Fnatic, though, right?
Yeah, they actually... I think somebody else pointed it out, too, when we were doing breakfast, that this is how they like to play. They like to set up Mushi as much as they possibly can for future success. And so this isn't too surprising. But the thing is, it's a Viper and a Wind Ranger, and it's a lot less scary when you're a Viper, right, against a Wind Ranger, because you just know that her kill potential is so low. And something I want to point out that's actually really interesting, and I was so glad to see this, is if you notice Mushi's skill build, like, this is really different. He's opted to go for 2 into Wind Run this early on, and actually only a single level of Shackle Shot.
Yeah, I really like this as well because I feel like you were talking about it, like I didn't actually think about the low armor on the Wind Ranger, and that makes a lot of sense. But when I view the Wind Ranger Viper matchup, I look at it as entirely right-click oriented for the Wind Ranger and more focused on CS than anything else. So I like this stats build from Mushi, and I think you brought up a really good point, which was if you're playing this, you do not really want to be spamming out power shots. So the more right-click focused you are, both when it comes to harassing S4, but also playing for CS, I think it's just a better way to play this 1-versus-1.
Yeah. I mean, I talked about that before, how you don't want to spam power shot, but it's still your flash farm mechanic. So that's the most interesting part for me. Like, as a mid player, I'm actually really excited to see how this goes and how this plays, because a lot of things are different right now for me that I don't typically see. Like, if you see Mushi's build, he's actually opted to go for 2 null talismans, and he's skipping the bottle entirely. because I assume he just doesn't need the bottle. Because
Yeah, because he's not going power shot, right? So he's not spamming it out. So he's focused more on his right-click damage. And right now, I mean, if you look at the damage difference, he's doing 77 a hit while Viper's only doing 67. And when Mushi pops Wind Run, like, Viper's not doing any damage to him. So he's actually just able to like, just really put pressure on Viper sometimes, or at the very least, secure easy CS. So it's quite an even matchup so far. Take a look at some of the other lanes, though. We are having some pressure up here at the top lane from Fnatic. They're going to wrap around now with Johnny. Zai, who is level 3, is hidden himself inside the trees, but he's going to be spotted out eventually, I think, or not. The creeps die as the Iron Shell goes out, and Fnatic are going to be forced back. So Zai actually managed to get a lot of experience from that wave, and probably the next wave as well, since Johnny's not going to be in position to catch him out this time.
Yeah, I think it was a little obvious that they were going for him, because you'll notice that you want to sandwich in between having a creep wave so you can dive under the tower, and Fnatic were just pushing the lane like as fast as they could. Like, they're pretty much auto-attacking it down. Now they're doing it because they want to get the tower down, but previously I think they were doing it to dive, and I think he saw that coming.
Yeah.
Like, even Ohio's rotated in for this because he's had such a rough time at bottom. Because that's the thing about the support Naga, right? Is that you just set up a hero like Gyro, who's incredibly strong in the laning phase, just to win his lane, and then you can rotate the Naga around to pretty much do whatever you want. She doesn't just have to sit here static in the lane, but first tower of the game is going to go for Fnatic, and I mean, I'm still just really fascinated by this build from Mushi. Like, he's opted to go for 3 in his Shackle Shot, so he's not going to have the best flash harm advantage, but his early disables will be really sick. 3-second Sun off the bat, 5 minutes is pretty insane, but
yeah,
you're really relying a lot on it. It almost feels all-in-y to me.
Yeah, it really does. Ohio's going to be caught here by Puppey. There's pretty much no chance. In fact, if anything, Team Secret may be the ones in trouble. Kenshigimba actually completes his TP, despite the fact that Arteezy's already gone for him. Big Nuke comes out, and Arteezy drops low, but not low enough. Fnatic can't finish him up, and now with a couple more flat cannon shots, they're going to be forced back here. Ohio, who doesn't have mana. Mushi's here trying to trap Arteezy in. He eats his way through the trees, making a bit of a juke around, buys the rest of his items, and will end up going down to Ohio here. Oh, Jesus, Ohio dropped pretty low, but very obviously trapped due to good rotation from Team Fnatic, and that's part of the advantage, right? When you put a little bit of all-in pressure in your safe lane and you take that tier 1 tower first, that leaves your supports or maybe even your core open to rotate mass to the bottom lane. Mushi is going to be potentially caught here. Kuro doesn't quite yet have ensnare. Now he does. The mana gets laid out. Double stuns are going to be out. Power shot being laid in. Kuro's actually going to drop pretty low, but S4 comes in order to clean that last hit. Kenshigimba couldn't really stop that Viper from killing out the Wind Rangers. So in the end, 2-1 advantage going to Team Secret solely because of that pickoff there on Mushi before it actually seemed things were going Fnatic's way.
If you think about it, the current type of mid heroes, or the heroes that are played right now, are incredibly mobile, and we're starting to see the prevalence of heroes like Dazzle, Keeper of the Light, things like that. And so people just don't really have a heavy focus on like supports that can gank or actually get kills off, right? It's more just play the stack game, try to get into team fights and just go for the 5-man push. But that's why I like the Crystal Maiden and the Naga pickup, because there's actually no way that Mushi was going to get out of that. Like, they had Ensnare, they had Crystal Nova, you've got the Frostbite as well. There's just so many different ways to deal with the mobility that Fnatic have.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you brought up like how good Crystal Maiden is versus the Queen of Pain, because you can't actually blink away, the same kind of single target disable is really good against Wind Ranger as well, who's so dependent on that win run.
Yeah, it was like the old Dota 1 counter. If there was a Wind Ranger on the other team that was going to play the off lane, then you would just pick Crystal Maiden, because you had to force her into a position like that. But I'm just really curious to know what the thought process is behind not getting the power shot at all.
Did you see that? So this early ward that was placed by Puppey earlier managed to spot out the double smoke, but it looks like Kuro is still going to go down here. He pops the images, is able to dodge some damage, but not quite enough to get some good damage into Johnny, but it's still going to be a free pickoff for Fnatic, despite the fact that they scouted that one out. A bit curious. Maybe they thought that that smoke meant they were going to rotate around through the top part of the map to catch out S4 somehow, but that seemed, to me at least, a huge mistake from Team Secret.
It was probably just a miscall, because I think they thought they could take that fight, but the Queen of Maiden ultimate is too high, and maybe they weren't entirely sure where things are going, because at the worst you want to secure that Arteezy lives here, So I don't think it was the worst play, but I think it was a little bit of a mistake. And taking a look at both supports, there is a smoke on Puppey now, and there is a level 6 on S4. And if you notice that S4 decided to go for a 4 in the corrosive skin, and it just hasn't paid off because the Wind Ranger A isn't really getting in a right click fight with him, and P, he doesn't have a level of power shot yet.
You didn't need that.
So you think I was kind of thinking about that, right? Like, if you are going for a stats build with more win run on Wind Ranger, does that give more incentive for the Viper to go for like less levels in corrosive skin and more on the right click of his own, or because of the fact that, you know, Wind Run is getting a little bit extra levels and in man fighting so much, maybe the defensive option is just better? I don't know. I almost kind of agree with his corrosive skin builds. Would you have preferred to see like earlier levels in Nether Toxin in that case?
No, because if Mushi hasn't thrown a single power shot this entire game, then you realize like there's no point in going for the Nether Toxin or the Poison Attack, because the Poison Attack, it's not really going to make a difference too much whether or not you level it against a Wind Ranger that has 2 levels of the Wind Run, right? Same goes for the Nether Toxin, but the Corrosive Skin I think is just a mid-game build in general. Like you grab Corrosive Skin, you get a mechanism, your hero's like the tankiest hero in all of Dota. And if you look at Fnatic, their sustained fight is actually not that strong.
Oh, catching Gimba from behind that tower. A 4-man smoke is successful, but now Arteezy's been caught by at least that shackle shot plus the focus fire. Looks like Arteezy is going to be going down. He drops out the call down before he leaves, though. Mushi's going to be the target of the Viper. Unfortunately, the snowball unable to save him. Another hero goes down, and perhaps a third. It's Zai deep behind the tower. Bakuro with the clutch save there of the Song of Siren in order to reset the fight and make sure it's just a clean 2 for 2. So in the end, despite the fact that Fnatic were the ones surprised by that gank and the 4-man smoke up, it still was quite an even fight.
Yeah, I actually still kind of give the advantage there to Secret, just because, like, I know I'm obsessing a lot over the Wind Ranger build, and maybe I shouldn't, but if you do go for this build without power shot, like, I think it's really cool, but at the same time, you have to be successful early game. Like, because you don't have a flash farm mechanic, that means it's going to take her to, like, level 12 to be able to max out everything, right? If she wants to get a second level of the focus fire. So that means she's naturally going to be far behind. And so it does rely on Mushi to have an early start that's successful to kind of pay off. Otherwise, you're just playing the catch-up game. But I really...
Again, the ward once again caught it out the 4-man smoke.
Yeah, and he's playing super far back. They should be able to spot that this is coming for Arteezy. He's going to run away.
But to build on your point, like, we also kind of agreed beforehand that this is sort of the way that Fnatic operate. Like, they need Mushi to do well. So it's not only about the hero, right, but it's also the playstyle Fnatic that you can't afford to let Mushi get shut down because he is your big playmaker. He's the one who makes sure that Fnatic, if he's doing well, Fnatic does well. If he's doing poorly, I don't think I've ever really seen a game where Fnatic still come out on top.
Yeah, but I do like the fact that there's a heavy emphasis on putting as much pressure on Arteezy. Like, Arteezy's typically left relatively uncontested, but the fact that Fnatic are continuing to go after him speaks a lot about the fact that they're playing to win right now.
Yeah.
They're not afraid to smoke deep into the jungle. They're not giving Secret the type of respect that most teams show them, and I think that's overall the right play. And the way that Fnatic are actually building their heroes too, I think both teams are pretty much gearing up for some sort of mid-game fight. Because if you notice that KYXY, instead of going for something more typical like the Yule Scepter that we've been seeing into the Aghanims, or even like an early BKB, he's going for the Bracer into the Robe of the Magi, which I think, I mean, that should mean that he's going to go for drums, right?
Yeah, unless he just wants a value bracer. KYXY is still going to have a blink. Oh, he couldn't even get it off in time. That was beautiful timing from Zai. Halfway through the blink animation, you couldn't, Vacuum is not a very long disable, but if you can interrupt somebody's animation like that, he just extended that disable, the extra bit of half-second timing there that was required for the freezing field to do the damage.
Yeah, that was just so well played because it resets the animation. Like, you have to recast. And so just a really good play by Zai reading the situation. But still, it is only the Queen of Pain. I feel like Fnatic are somewhat okay with that. No, they're not. That was a carry. Like, he needs farm progression faster than this because...
It would have been okay if Ketchigamba and Ohio were successful in their gank on Arteezy at the bottom lane, but... that unfortunately didn't work out, despite the fact that they had a ward and everything. Tusk just wasn't able to get over in time.
So Arteezy's got drums, they've got a mech as well. I think this is the time for them to just go for the map control. And if you're Fnatic, I almost feel as though you have to just get the level 6 onto Johnny and then look for smart fights. Like, right now the pickoff potential for them isn't too high because their Tusks had such a rough start in the early game when he got zoned out for so long.
Yeah.
So he has to be a little bit concerned about that, and a 4-step's actually going to be the first item for Zai.
Why do you think that is over the the choice of should the Viper go for stats, like maybe some early stats? I mean, we've seen SNY before, maybe a fast Aghanim Scepter, and then the Darkseer goes for the mech, vice versa. What's the pros and cons between the two?
I think the Darkseer going for the mech is actually just naturally worse. Like, because the Viper, you want to be able to stay naturally tanky in these fights, and you don't want to have to rely on the Darkseer being nearby.
Okay.
I actually like the 4-step because I think it just prolongs the fight as long as possible. But Fnatic are going to run into a pretty sick timing where they're about to hit level 6 on Johnny. They're going to pick up a medallion on their Visage, and once that happens, Cap, there are options for them. Like, they can do the Roshan quite easily. They do have Dire Side for that, and their fight game potential isn't too bad either. Like, they've got drums completed on the Queen of Pain, but I do feel like with that timing, like, you have to pretty much go non-stop. Like,
yeah,
she's going to pick up a mech. Like, these are the items that you need to pretty much get into fights, and I feel like with Fnatic, the way that they're building, you pretty much have to get into fights.
Yeah, you said very early on that you felt like this Wind Ranger build was sort of all-in-ish in a way, where you basically have to do well in the early game, otherwise you don't have the power shot to continue your farm and you'll eventually fall behind. And you're seeing more and more elements of all-in behavior out from Fnatic. Like a big example being the drums on the Queen of Pain. I feel that's very all-in because it's so early stat-focused and will play a serious detriment later on. Ketchigimba is maybe going to be caught out here. Calldown does reveal him. Ketchik is going to be going down now as he has no escape whatsoever. So a smoke that is successful for Team Secret. But just to finish up my point here, like the drums, the Ring of Bacillus, like that feels like very all-in, early game focused, and you need to get big dividends out of that stat item. And then the Wind Ranger going for the mech now means that if she doesn't manage to have good fights, hold up, Buffy's going to be the target of a snowball, quickly blowing him up. There's one, and it seems like they'll run away. They don't need to try and go for a second. They know Arteezy is somewhere nearby.
Yeah, I don't really, maybe all-in isn't the right term, but heavily focused or heavily geared towards having
Yeah, heavily early to mid-game focused, and if you lose those early game team fights, you're naturally going to fall really far behind.
Yeah, I don't want people to think that or especially that I'm hitting on Fnatic or anything like that, or their items. Like, I think this is really interesting, and I think this is the right approach, because I don't think that against a team like Secret, you can just secede the early game completely and hope that something like your late game pays off. I feel like applying the early pressure is the right idea.
Yeah.
But again, they have to start doing it soon. Like, what they're waiting on right now is pretty much Mushi to hit this mech timing, and for their supports to both get level 6. Like, the Witch Doctor's level 6 now. You're not really seeing too much farm progression on the Queen of Pain. So I feel like once Mushi picks up his mech, which is after this creep wave, they should just start running at them.
Arteezy pushing out the bottom lane with little fear. Fnatic not able to find an opening on him for the last few minutes. Johnny, meanwhile, is doing a bit of farming up here in the top lane. Seems like he's got an early belt of strength to, I guess, finish up treads before he starts going for the Aghanim. So maybe he just feels like he needs a little bit more tankiness, but he's going to be in some trouble here. Zai's going to try and run him down, but naturally the Ion Shell damage over time just doesn't pair well against a Witch Doctor who has a heal over time. So Fnatic are going to get into a fight here. The bottom lane, they've already actually retreated ahead of the Naga Siren Sleep. Ketchigimba trying to get the TP out, does get revealed. Oh, the song actually caught him there before the TP could complete, and Ketchigimba will be going down. But I would say Fnatic, that could have been so much worse. A quick retreat managed to make sure that they didn't get completely initiated on by the Kuro ultimate.
Yeah, the problem there was I think they wanted to get into a fight before they could, but Mushi didn't have the mech completed to him, and Johnny shows himself at top. So Secret know that at worst, it's a 4v5 fight. But Mushi was showing himself mid prior to that as well, so I think it was just a little bit of miscommunication by Fnatic, because they should have ran, I think, just 5 seconds earlier, and they would have gone out scot-free. But a good catch by Kuro, just preemptively throwing out the Song of the Siren out, and they're able to bring down not too big of a hero. Like, it doesn't slow down Fnatic's plans, I feel.
Right. Yeah, they're still going to go for this tier 1 tower. Maybe presuming that Team Secret have rotated out, they do have some vision of these heroes, but it's a lot more on just presumption that after one fight like that and a bottom tier 1 tower push, they naturally rotate out. Blink Dagger's now up for Ohio, so he's got some initiating power to himself. Mushi has that mech and phase boots. I'm presuming you go for the Aghanim Scepter next because you still want to build Wind Ranger into more damage, but it also means that you've actually got a really nice stats build where you're really tanky as a Wind Ranger when you've got both Ags and mech, or at least, you know, tanky for a Wind Ranger anyway.
Yeah, this was the old school build that we used to see, but it's kind of fallen out of popularity because of the lack of damage that she puts out. And just the fact that Aghanim Scepter is such a great item on her, but I like it. I think that this is the correct idea. I think Fnatic could execute a little bit better, but I think overall their game plan isn't bad whatsoever. Like, they have so much team fight on their team, and I feel like the correct play now that you've got pretty much all your core items, is to just march down. Because if you look at the way they build, nobody has a Midas or anything like that. There's not a whole lot of late game potential, so I feel like Fnatic are almost forced into a position where they should go into a fight. But I feel like this was their strategy to begin with, just looking at the item choices alone.
But once again, they're backing down from that fight. I'm getting more and more concerned that we are talking about how Fnatic are wanting to be able to force a fight, at least with their item build and everything. We get this feeling like they're focused on those the team fights that are 15 to 25 minutes to kind of win the beginning of the mid game, that sort of area that can be so important in the current meta. And we're not seeing them force those fights. And as time goes on, Secret are getting more and more of a net worth lead on their 3 cores. So you look at the Viper and the Gyrocopter, they're way far ahead of the Fnatic cores.
Yeah, the score is only 7-5, but if you take a look at the difference in net worth, it's almost 10k. Like, it was like a really sneaky 10k too, but yeah. If you look at S4's build alone, like I was talking about how Fnatic didn't have any Midases or they didn't have build-up potential. Like, look at what S4 decided to buy. He decides to go for the Hand of Midas because he realizes that. Like, even he was faster about it than I was, like recognizing in the game, okay, they don't really have a whole lot of late game potential, so why not just go for the safe route? Like, I've got the mech, and now I can force Fnatic into a position where they overextend. But I think Fnatic are kind of doing things the right way. Like, as weird as it sounds, because we discussed how they had to get active sooner or later, I feel like if you get active and you throw a fight against a team that has a Midas and a Gyrocopter, then the potential is there for you to just straight up lose. So you have to be patient. You have to look for that one really smart engagement. It can't come at like the 40-minute mark, but having it done 1 or 2 minutes later probably doesn't make too big of a difference.
So the idea being that, yes, this is the way they built. They need to try and force some sort of early game team fight, but don't force the wrong fight, right? Like, we haven't seen an opening where Fnatic had an advantage and they walked away. It was always Team Secret were set up in a very good position. Problem is now, as time goes on, it's getting worse and worse. Now Roshan going to Team Secret and Aegis being picked up. This means a big advantage for the next 5 minutes and a big advantage for the next 30 seconds as Ketchigimba gets caught right outside the Roshan pit as well.
Yeah, that's definitely their idea, is to just not take the wrong fight, but at this point they're just not taking any fights, and so the net worth advantage continues to build in favor of Secret, who are just all going for the late game, I feel. Like, just Arteezy will will towards a Satanic, and at top they actually get a pick off.
That was a big burst of damage. Puppey's going to go down as well, it seems. Nice little double kill there for Ohio. And that's something really important, right? Fnatic, it's really bad that they gave up Roshan and gave up that Aegis, because it means that they can't force a fight, right, for another 5 minutes. Or if they do, it's a very risky one to fight into an Aegis. But if the Aegis is already there, then the plan is you got to get pickoffs like that. And a double kill is exactly what Fnatic needed. They put some pressure on that tier 2 tower as well and start continuing the item progression of the Queen of Pain. That Aghanim Scepter is going to be a little bit late than normal, but that is, of course, because she went for the drums build first.
Yeah, and I think Fnatic are completely adapting to the game right now, because if you notice that Mushi, he's got a Mithril Hammer, so he can go one of 2 ways, the Maelstrom or the Deso. I think the Maelstrom is more likely, just because of the type of damage that you want to output. And yeah, it is because he's just going for farm now. Like, he hasn't participated in any fights. Like, he's been 1-2-0 since minute 12, I think, since I started tracking it. And so for the last 10 minutes, all he's done is farm, and I think that's the correct idea here. They're not trying to overforce anything. And if you take a look at the Tusk build too on Ohio, he's opted to go for the Shadow Blade. So I think this is more of a let's look for pickoffs now. The moment of time has passed where we can just put this heavy amount of pressure in the mid game, especially with the Aegis gone, like you said. And so I think this is the correct response. Like, go for some pick-off potential and look for things of that nature rather than just all-inning or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's why they gave up the tier 2 tower here in this middle lane. They don't want to try and go into a team fight, even if it is around their own tier 2 tower, simply because that Aegis is still up. So Ohio's quick to try and push out that bottom lane, but he's going to be forced into a rotation back. Team Secret, knowing that Fnatic really don't want to take a team fight right now, are going to take it to Fnatic's front door. They already go uphill, focusing now on that tier 3 tower. Team Secret do get a very nice shackle shot as well as an ice shards that kind of keeps them in a bad position, but again, these two very tanky heroes are not going to be taken lightly. RTZ, a little bit of damage coming out. Fnatic are just kind of poking and prodding, hoping to be able to bring RTZ low enough that they can kill him while he still has that Aegis, but not commit to a team fight.
Yeah, I think that they just back off, or maybe even go for a fake back because they have a smoke. Like, that power shot just misses, but Puppey actually just shows that he wants to completely back. They're not really getting what they want out of this, because Fnatic can just infinitely hold by spamming out spells. And so it's going to be way too difficult for them to high ground breach at this moment. And really, there's no reason for them to risk it at all. Like, I think Aegis in general is an item that makes teams a little bit too overconfident. But if that gyro is caught out of position, like, even with the Aegis, they could just blow him up, right? Like, a good death ward positioning makes him play defensively, and if he gets shackled, like, anything can happen. So I think the better play there is just to reset and look for a pickoff, and that's exactly what's going to happen is Ohio at top.
Yeah, he's going to be going down quite easily. The Walrus Punch leading things off, so the 3-man smoke gang finds Ohio yet another kill. Talking about Fnatic and how they're falling a little bit behind in net worth, but Ohio is the one leading the charge here in net worth, at least for his team, sitting at 9K. Still 12K on the Viper, 13 on the Gyrocopter. But, of course, one good, really good team fight for Fnatic, and they can actually even out this advantage, or at least bring it pretty close.
Yeah, and something to say for Fnatic's lineup at the same time is that the Crystal Maiden starts to fall off a little bit in terms of her disables too. Like, if you notice, she only has a single level of Frostbite, so that's only a 1.5 second disable. And they have ways to deal with the net, because you can blink dodge the animation. Like, there are ways to deal with it, and so Fnatic actually have really mobile heroes against a lineup that doesn't really have this catch potential. So I think they're going to be pretty pleased with this, and they might even go for the attempt on Artesia top. Like, Ohio's in position right now. They might just want to, like, force the BKB and go back. And it looks like they are trying to pincer him, and there's no ward vision. Like, they know he's completely alone. Like, Ohio, once he spots this midway line, is going to know this isn't a smoke or anything like that at the same time. So maybe this is the attempt at top.
The only potential bailout would be S4 as the Viper sitting farther down. RTZ is going to be targeted here as he already takes some damage from KYXY. I think they're hoping to be able to burn that BKB already. KYXY S4 is now coming over as well as They're going to try and blow off RTZ, but there goes the mech. It actually keeps him alive enough time to be able to get down the call down, and he's not even going to go down. He's getting healed enough. He lives with just 20 HP. The Maledict is there. The BKB runs out at the last half second, and the Maledict will kill him in the end. So they actually do manage to pick him off because his Aegis expired there as the fight transgressed, but it was still a 3 loss there for Team Fnatic. Not really worth the 1 kill on RTZ.
Yeah, they were trying to time that Aegis out, and with this ward, they didn't actually see them run through, but everyone was in position, and this might even mean that Mushi's dead. He doesn't have any defensive items. If he just gets snared with S4 in position, this should mean a death. He already recognizes that. He's just going to go for the tower, and he might actually get out.
Oh, no, the vacuum is there. Mushi now turns for the tower. He gets it in the end, so he gives up his life. That dying breath does get up that last shot. Meanwhile, Puppey goes for the tower of his own. The top lane does manage to snag it before Ketchik Imba could hit the deny.
Yeah, but I really like that Fnatic decided to go for that. The kill on RTZ, there was just such a fast rotation by Secret. There was almost no chance for them to be able to respond. But I feel like Secret, they're still in firm control of this game. The net worth advantage alone tells the story, right? Like, I've been trying to talk about a lot of what Fnatic is doing, but that's mainly because Secret's game plan is clear, and they are leading with it. And so I feel like it's more interesting, I guess, to talk about what Fnatic are doing to try to get back into the game.
It's more interesting to talk about the struggle because you do see Team Secret building more and more of an advantage. A Fnatic will find a serious pickoff here on S4, but he's tanky as all hell. Ohio actually has to pop the Shadow Blade and start packing himself up for fear of trading 1-1. But in the end, the 3-man gank is successful. Nobody lost on the side of Fnatic, and a very important kill. In fact, that one kill was worth 728 gold for the Witch Doctor, who does actually almost have Aghanim Scepter. That is a gigantic change in power potential for Team Fnatic in these team fights.
Yeah, I know the net worth reads 10k, but if anybody, you've been playing Dota for long enough, you know that Witch Doctor ultimate can completely change your fortunes. We talked about it in the early game last time, right? Or early on in this game. And so I think that it can completely change the fight. You've got an Aghanims on your Queen of Pain, and Ohio's just doing absolute work with the Shadow Blade because Puppey, he's just avoiding Puppey because he realizes that Puppey will most likely have sentries in areas that he's going to traverse through. And so if you notice, like anytime Puppey shows himself in mid, then he just goes top and vice versa. Like he just tries to annoy the hell out of Secret.
We've got Shivas coming in soon for Zai's Darkseer, Gyrocopter about to pick up the Butterfly. So we're getting to the point in time where now Team Secret's farm is getting to a point where they're all getting that first really big late game item. Butterfly for Gyro. The Shivas is huge for Darkseer, I would say. I mean, that increase in HP, like just the general increase in armor and the attack speed slow and everything else, I think Zai's just going to be able to survive through some of these nukes. And kind of same goes with a lot of Team Secret. They have just enough sustain that then it comes down to the right-click damage. And that's just already not that fearsome from Team Fnatic. It's only really on the Wind Ranger. And then that's going to be slowed down quite heavily by things like the Shivas.
Yeah, and Ohio at this bottom lane again, potentially just trying to harass out. I think they're just trying to force rotation towards him, but I think Secret are just going to ignore this and decide to go for this bottom lane, this tier 2, and there's actually no vision from Fnatic, and they're rotating down this Queen of Pain, and KYXY is going to get spotted out by Puppey. And
Ohio, he did get spotted out now. He's going to try and make a snowball play, but it looks like he is stuck 100%. So Fnatic will lose their Tusk, who was getting himself quite a good amount of net worth, but will falter a bit more now. Team Secret well set up, I think, to be able to take that tier 2 tower in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and I think by Fnatic, you should just scramble, start to pressure out this top lane, because you know what Secret's game plan is going to be. The reason they're saving this tier 2 tower for last and why they're marching down right now is I think you just go for this tower and then go for the Roshan immediately after, and then you've got high ground potential for the bottom lane at the same time.
Right.
And you've got pretty much everything you want, but at the same time, Fnatic is still building correctly. Like, if you notice that Mushi's response, even before RTZ completes anything, is to go for the MKB. Like, he's actually just completely deviating from the norm, and I think this is the correct way. Like, he's adapting to the game rather than just simply saying, I'm going to go all in to get the Aghanim Scepter, right?
Yeah.
Like, he realizes his damage output really relies on being able to get an MKB against a team that has both a Solar Crest and the Butterfly.
Yeah, otherwise it would just be a very simple setup where Team Secret would 5-man into Team Fnatic's base and put both the Gyrocopter with an Aegis and a Viper, uphill beating on the tier 3 tower, and you have to deal with them, otherwise they're going to take out your building. So you have to be able to get some source of damage to deal with that evasion, and even just dealing with the evasion is not going to be enough because the Gyrocopter and the Viper are still significantly tanky without that. So I think Mushi's has the right idea, but Fnatic are going to need a little bit more damage than just that. And that, of course, is where the Aghanims of the Witch Doctor is going to come in. He does have his level 2 ultimate, and that is quite significant. It looks like Ohio, is he going BKB? Or is he going like a Desolator just to try and increase the single target focus of, say, the Wind Ranger? Like, he goes in, punches the Gyrocopter, and that allows Mushi to get a lot of focus fire damage.
I feel like you still need to go for the BKB against Secret's lineup. Like, there's just too much that can deal with you, but Fnatic are going for the smoke round. They know that the entire team is there. This might actually be their best shot at winning a fight, but they have to do it quickly because Secret are beating on these tier 3s, and this might not even be an advantage because they'll have their own high ground.
Oh, they're going to go first for Curl, immediately taking him out. There is going to be no Song of Siren to be able to save them, but already the response is there from Zai. 2-man vacuum while on top.
This Death Ward, though.
Oh no, he's going to go down. The freezing field is being laid out. Death Ward, though, is focused on S, but he's just too tanky. He doesn't care. He soaks up all the damage, and now here comes the buyback. Mushi is the first one. Tusk as well. well, lays out his. They need more pickoffs. They need to be able to catch Team Secret, who are on the retreat now, but it doesn't look like they're going to find anything. So really, the only thing that Team Fnatic truly recover, unless Arteezy gets caught here, Ohio kind of playing a small game with him. But yeah, you can't commit. They managed to take away the gem. Because they managed to pick off Kuro first, take him out, make sure there was no Song of Siren set up, and then they immediately have the buybacks, they recovered the gem, which I think is significant enough. Maybe not worth the buybacks out from Team Fnatic, but it does give you some recovery and it gives you some signs of life.
Yeah, the problem is that if you lose that many buybacks, you pretty much have to go for some sort of objective just so you don't fall too far behind. And this might actually be a decent scenario for them where they go for the Roshan, but they have to get this. They can't really lose this fight or get caught out because both buybacks are on CD. Fnatic is hitting quite low. Bushi's going to pop the win run and get out of here, but doesn't really look like Secret can continue to chase.
Ice Shard's blocking him out at 4. Well, no, he gets back to his team. The Mech and Team Fnatic are not going to try and go for that pickoff. It would have just put them in a bad position, committing a bit too heavily. So I like what they did there. I actually felt like, yeah, recovering the gem was not enough, but recovering the gem and then actually getting Roshan and picking up the Aegis and not losing anybody after that, I think almost makes the buybacks worth it. I think Fnatic are going to be very happy with the way that played out.
Yeah. I don't think you're happy with using buybacks. Because like if you lose this fight, then you're gonna lose so much. But it was like they made the best out of a bad situation. But Secret, I mean, they're just so dominant in their farm right now.
Nice Ice Shards. Arteezy stuck in a bad position, but there goes that Song of Siren. And Arteezy will be able to get away. Brought down to 800 HP in such a short period of time. They're still going to have the ultimate out from KYXY. Arteezy drops lower, but now here comes a vacuum call down. They're going to be able to catch one and a second as the Aegis falls. Johnny, meanwhile, throws out that Death Ward, doing a good amount of damage, but it's still not enough to finish off any one hero. S4 on the front lines, Mushi is going to be forced to try and take him out. Great shackle shot that locks down S4. A bit longer, will be able to get that kill, but between the ensnare and the damage of Arteezy, the Wind Ranger falls once again, and Team Secret are now left with the predicament of whether or not they want to claim that melee racks for their own.
Yeah, and I think the Queen of Pain is also still in the buyback cold penalty. She's not going to have buyback for another 7 minutes, so her dying here would effectively end the game for Fnatic. So they're just trying to scramble, stay alive whatever they can, but Arteezy, with the help of the Urn, is already at full HP. And that did look like a deceptively good fight for Fnatic because Arteezy dropped so low, S4 was already quite low, and you had the Aegis, but they're unable to capitalize, and Secret just outlasts them because of the amount of farm that they have.
Yep, Zai is always able to get great counter initiations, and Arteezy, even if you did drop to like 200 HP, it doesn't matter. Pops a flat cannon, is able to get all those shots off, and because of his significant amount of damage that he's rocking right now, it just is so much physical damage that Fnatic can't really recover from there. So 2 sets of Rex is the cost for Fnatic losing that team fight in the middle lane, and they continue to fall farther and farther behind. Team Fnatic almost seem to need to do something drastic now to hope to recover this game.
Yeah, I think part of the issue, if you want to go back to the early game, is the way that they picked both of their supports. Like, you've got a Witch Doctor and a Visage, but both are heroes that really heavily rely on having that Aghanim Scepter at a reasonable time. Johnny, you can argue, got his at an okay time, but Catch Imba is actually a little bit too far behind. Like, getting a 45-minute Visage Aghanim Scepter at this point probably doesn't matter too much just because Arteezy's got a butterfly. Like, Black Cannon takes him out so quickly. And that's the issue, is that you have 2 supports that both need farm, but you can't really evenly distribute it. But you do need all 3 stuns to be able to do anything, and I feel like their momentum is just kind of fizzling out more than anything.
Now we've got more luxury items coming in. Boots of Travel being picked up by Zai's Darkseer. And then on top of that, even the support has something to go on here. Ohio is maybe going to be caught out here. The vacuum pulls him back into the call down. They have the vision to be able to catch him out. So Arteezy now jumps into a dominating streak. They lose Ohio, and that's right, the other item I wanted to talk about was the BKB from Puppey, who now has this level 3 freezing field, especially with the way that that ability was buffed up. This is going to be a significant increase in damage for Team Secret, especially since Fnatic do not have any real good ways to stop Puppey from using that freezing field. Pretty much the only way is the Tusk Walrus Punch.
Yeah, now that the Tusk is dead, they're going to feel pretty comfortable about this. And Puppey's actually just going to snake around and try to get in a better position, but there are 2 sentry wards up there, so he has to be careful. And Fnatic are kind of stuck in a rough situation where they don't have buybacks where they really desperately need them, because this is the game losing fight or winning fight potentially for them.
Ushi comes in from the side, hoping to be able to shackle both RTZ and S4 together. Meanwhile, Johnny actually gets caught. He was hiding in the cope center trees, but Kuro managed to actually find him, and they take out Johnny, who's going to be a primary source of damage, or at least was supposed to be, for Team Fnatic. But now he's down for 45 seconds. Kuro pops the Song of Siren, leads with the ultimate, and is now just giving his time to complete Mega Creeps. That is an 8-second hold, and now Nagasiren, while she is very far forward and will be sacrificed, it does come at the cost of Mega Creeps, and a really bad fight for Team Fnatic as they still get vacuumed up. Wall call down to the combination is just too much to handle. Team Fnatic, even underneath their fountain, don't stand a chance, and Team Secret will take game number 1.
Yeah, and this was just, it wasn't the flashiest victory, but it was just efficient by Secret. Like Fnatic, they had a pretty good idea of what they wanted to do. You could see that there was a game plan with the way that they built items and the way that they built their heroes, but it just didn't pan out for them because they lost early control so quickly, and they just weren't able to get any towers down. And I actually feel like Secret, there were a few slip-ups, but it didn't even